Hello, good evening, and welcome to Books and Bush Tea. Hoping that everyone can hear me, and I'd like to invite you to spend some time with us this evening and enjoy our time with our books. Hello again. My name is Annikki. I am your host for this evening. Welcome to Books and Bush Tea. We're going to talk about books. We're going to talk about goals for the year. We're also going to have a wonderful guest this evening. I'm going to have with me this evening the lovely Miss Joy Basdeo. I actually have her book, and I don't think I brought it over here, but I love it. You're going to really enjoy talking with Miss Joy about her book this evening. But before we do, I wanted to take a quick recap of how things went last week. So if you're joining us for the first time, this is Books and Bush Tea. We talk about books, we talk about reading, we talk about writing, and we spend a lot of time together just enjoying the written word and all of the things that we can do with it. But today, I just wanted to spend some time and recap. If you haven't seen the episode that we did last week, I really, really recommend it. You can find it anywhere on CMR TV. We spent time speaking with 5 Cayman readers of all ages and nationalities and backgrounds. It was actually really lovely. We had Miss Carolyn Smith, who is a poet, and she really spent some time recommending wonderful Caribbean writers that we can enjoy. We also had Nico Moxham. I think Nico might be 10, he might be 11, but Nico is one of the most fascinating little readers we've had. He has so many really strong opinions on reading, and I really enjoyed having Nico on. We have to have him back. In fact, all of our guests from last week, I would love to spend more time with this year. We also had Miss Caroline Allinger talk to us about the life of reading and having a book in the bathroom, a book in our purse, audiobooks going in traffic, and spending time just really enjoying reading. And when you can, like when you're in a busy life, just grabbing a book and going. Caroline has also been a guest in Books and Bush Tea earlier on in our time together, where she spoke with us about plays and drama and the written word and enjoying them. And then we also had Felix join us, Felix Manzanares, and he was talking to us about the books that he really enjoys, which are a lot of them are nonfiction. And we also spoke with Hilton Grace, who is a poet. He's also the leader of Floetry, and I really am looking forward to him coming back and spending time with us. But tonight, I really want to talk about you. I want to hear how your goals are going. And I'm going to share a little bit about my reading life before we have our wonderful guest, Miss Joy, joining us. Miss Joy will be joining us at about 8:30. And I'm looking forward to having her with us. Okay.
In 2020.
I really want you to take a look at this, because this is actually applying to the United States, but I think it applies to Cayman as well. And it's a little bit disturbing to me. So let's just I follow all these people on social media and about books. I'm really deep into book talk and Bookstagram. So if you actually follow us, it's called Books and Bush Tea Show on Instagram. I'm always resharing these things on stories, but this is one of them that really struck me today. And he's actually speaking about an article in The Atlantic, which of course is a literary magazine. I mean, The Atlantic is like more than a literary magazine, it's an establishment. So he's talking about a really interesting article in The Atlantic, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this and what you think about this and whether or not it applies to Cayman, and if so, what do we do about it?
In 2025, just one book You belong to an endangered species. That's the opening line of The Atlantic's latest dirge for our collective reading habits. Reading is a vice, and I'm sorry, but it is a must-read. In the bookish parts of social media, it's easy to forget just how far reading has fallen in this country. But if you're concerned with us becoming a less literate society, and I think you should be, then I'd offer that it's even more important to get people from 0 to 1 books than it is to get them from 1 to 100 books. Kitch, the piece's author, cites this study that shows that daily pleasure reading fell 3% a year every year for the 2 decades between 2003 and 2023. Obviously, this trend has concerned the literary set and educators for a while, but frankly, no one has managed to solve it yet, and I think Kitch shines a good flashlight on one of the newest hooks, one I've been guilty of making, which argues that reading is essential for democracy. The problem, as Kitch points out, and a certain political party should probably know well by now, is that almost no one who isn't already engaged in the behavior is motivated by some lofty call to save civilization. Kitch argues, and I think he's exactly right, that we attract new readers by centering on how pleasurable the activity of it is. I think that's what the girls who read romantasy have exactly right, and all the boys confused why they can't get through their copy of 101 grind-set ways to hustle your life have exactly wrong. Reading should be fun. And fun can sometimes be pointless or even counterproductive to raw capitalistic endeavors. And that's a point that I think is really well made by Kitch. Even in us motivated readers who might aspire to read widely and deeply to be the best citizens that we can be, or read self-help to be more productive in our own lives, that hunger for books and the love of prose probably didn't come about because in 2nd grade we set out to save the world or make $1 billion, but because we loved staying up late at night under the covers with a flashlight to find out if the wizard managed to beat the dragon.
I mean, this is so me. Just the thought of the little kid that was under the covers with the flashlight kind of threw me back to my life, because my parents kept us in books constantly, and they would give us a bedtime, and you'd be going to bed, and then you have your little sneaky little light under your under your covers, and sometimes it would be me reading to my brother at after lights out. But it's interesting because they talk about the pleasure of reading and how important it is to enjoy reading, and it's something that I highly recommend that we think about very, very carefully, because reading is, yes, it is functional, and yes, there are important things about reading that we do, but if we are not enjoying it, then we don't actually build it as a habit, and it becomes a chore. It becomes another job that we have to do. And so this is why you would have heard me last week with my nonfiction people, and nonfiction can be incredibly pleasurable, don't get me wrong. But when you're talking about self-help books all the time, I highly, highly recommend that you throw in some pleasure to make it easier, because you actually build a skill, and it's almost like building a muscle when you're actually reading for pleasure. So, but before we get into that, I also wanted to talk about the first part of that clip, which was, it is more important to have the person who doesn't read a single book get to 1 book a year than it is for us to be aiming for 100 books, or 200 books in 12 months, right? So our reading goals are going to be very lofty for some of us who have been doing this for many, many years. But it is so important. It's actually less important to me that someone who is an avid reader, it is going to set some kind of lofty goal. It is far more important to me to have one new person pick up a book and say, you know what, I'm going to finish this. And what's the key to that? One of the things that I loved about my interview with young Nico last week is that he talked about not wanting to read graphic novels, but wanting to read the book first, or wanting to read the book before seeing the movie. And he said something incredibly powerful. I mean, Nico is 10 or 11, but he had it in his mind. I prefer to read the book first, because then my mind captures the image, and my mind creates the image before I have someone tell me what to see. And I love that, because I think he was dead on. It was such a brilliant thought, and out of the mouths of babes, the wisdom of that statement, because one of the challenges that we're finding with the dropping in reading in society is that you have a generation of young people who are so accustomed to being told what to see. Or, you're in video games, they're very visual. You're watching TV, it's very visual. You're on social media, it's very visual. There's no imagination. There's nothing left for the imagination to do. And of course, the imagination is also a muscle. So if we're not building the muscle of our imagination through practice, which is what reading is, like daily practice, if we're not building that muscle, then when it comes time in our work, in our processing, in our solving of problems in the world, we then have to pull out this muscle that we haven't been exercising. And it's not as easy to do. So I always say that, reading, yes, there's so many reasons why we read, right? There's so many reasons why we read, but there's so many benefits we don't even think about before I get into like the reasons to read. I just I found this cute clip online. Once again, I'm on Bookstagram and Book Talk, and this is one of those things, like, read one book. Right? Yeah. Right now, there is someone who has yet to discover their love of reading, and all it takes is one book. So I'm committed to being a book recommendation receptacle. Like, if you are looking for recommendations on what that first book should be, please do not be shy. You can email us. I'm going to put up our email, and I'll give you our phone number. Hold on a second. Our email is aguticollective@gmail.com. So you can give us a call, you can WhatsApp us, or, just send me a note on social media. We have the Books and Bush Tea show. We have the Books and Bush Tea, page on social media, on Instagram. So you can call me and message me even right now, wherever you are right now watching from, you can send me a message. If you're looking for book recommendations, if I don't have one up my sleeve, I'm going to find you one by next week. Like, you don't even have to ask twice. Book recommendations is what we are here for. There are also some really cool book clubs, but I'm going to get into that a little later on, right before we get Miss Joy on. I have a couple of things I want to cover before we move on. Okay. Now, why do people read? We have a list. There's so many reasons why people read. And I'm curious to hear why you read. If you're a reader, if you're not a reader, why are you not a reader? So please feel free to send messages. I'm actually going to give you a couple of reasons why people read. Like right now, I'm actually, I am a reader that reads to escape. I'm a reader that reads for pleasure. And in 2025, I read a lot to escape. And so you notice that one of the things we talked about last week with some of the other readers is that your reading changes throughout your life. So there was a time in my life where I could not reread a book. If I'd read it, it was over. It was done. That world was over. And I would move on to the next one, because I had this way of being around reading where it's like, there are too many books in this world. I'm never going to be able to read them all. So I'm not rereading anything. But when when you're going through a tough time, sometimes it's really, really lovely to read something that you know how it's going to end. You don't have to get anxious about it. You can enjoy the book all over again. And so I actually have some really lovely books that I kind of turn into my own personal adult bedtime stories and listen to when I go to sleep, or I'll read them before I fall asleep. So relaxation, just to rereading can be very, very relaxing. Escapism is another one. I know that one of the ways that I cope, some people drink, some people spend money, some people do all of these other things in order to cope with some of the difficult times of life. But I actually find there's a genre of reading that I do to completely escape. And that's when you pick up a fantasy. Like, I'm no longer in this world. I'm not thinking about politics. I'm not thinking about, I'm not thinking about any of the dramas of life. I'm not thinking about work, but this is a place where I get to escape, right? So that's one of the reasons for reading, right? So escape, and sometimes relaxation. Another one that we keep coming up and finding, and particularly in our male readers, which I found fascinating so far, like all of the male readers I've spoken to, they're reading about leadership, they're reading about self-improvement, they're reading about a lot of other like self-improvement and development type work, right? So, and it's more than just self-help. It's actually, some of it is very psychological. And I noticed like Robert Greene books have come up a lot in the readers, the male readers that I've spoken with. That's like the 48 Laws of Power. I can't remember how many Rules of War. He has some really, really good books. And I've read some of those books and I highly recommend them. And I also recommend like having other types of reading that is going to engage you as well. But some of those are very, very engaging. And then, of course, we have the reason to, like, my niece reads so that she gets inspiration for her art, right? So there's an inspirational element to reading, so where some people actually read to get inspiration. And you can read fantasy, you can read sci-fi, you can read even romance, you can read and even some nonfiction is going to be incredibly inspirational or feed your imagination, right? So sparking your imagination and inspiring you is another reason to read. But a very, very basic reason to read, and one of that I find super interesting, particularly in parents of kids throughout the Caribbean, is that there are a lot of parents who are not really readers themselves, are trying to support their children to become readers. And one of the reasons that they do that is because of language improvement. Obvious. Like I could have slept through my English exams. My English was always going to be great, particularly when it came to literature, because I had been reading from before I really developed any other form of skill, any other form of useful skill. Like I think I was 3 or 4 when I first read I was about 4 when I read my first book to my brother. And it was a little golden book and I'll never forget it. And so it was like the love of reading is not, you don't get to it through just the idea of language improvement, but it's one of those amazing side effects. And it's so funny. I was having this conversation earlier on today with a reader in my family. Like my family's full of readers. My parents were readers. They read different types of things. My sibling, some of my cousins are readers. My aunt was a very, very avid reader. Even my uncles were readers, right? And so we were talking about the love of reading and, oh goodness, and not just language improvement, but also the way that you think. So, we talk about romance and how romance sounds so silly. And, romance has been given a really bad rap, a reputation, a bad rep. And I really don't think we are seeing the point of romance. In romance, we're learning a language around relationships. We're learning how to think, how to identify red flags. We're learning what our green flags are. We're learning what we like from what we don't like. And I really have a lot of respect for the romance genre. It's not something that I do very well in writing or read a lot of, but it's actually very useful. So a couple of reading goals that we can consider for the year, right? And one is read one book this year. If you haven't read a book in years, this is a time. And if you're looking for a good one to start with, call me or message me. And, you have our email right there. I'm going to actually keep my email open. So I'm going to see if anything comes in. But pop us an email, and even throughout the week, send us a note. So we also have our Instagram. I'm going to pop that up somewhere. I think I have that somewhere here that you can actually see as well. It's Books and Bush Tea at Books and Bush Tea Show. And that is us on Instagram. These were all set up earlier, but for some reason they went missing. All right, folks, that's it right there. You can actually just write it down real quick or just jump onto Instagram. All right, I'll leave that and let that run for a little bit. Okay, folks. So a couple of goals. Read one book this year. If you haven't read a book in a long time, read one book. Another one that I really recommend, particularly if you live in the Eastern Districts, is get your audiobooks and listen to them in traffic. One of the things I love about audiobooks, and this is something that, they're starting to identify, audiobooks are very important. They're very, very useful. We don't talk a whole lot about them, but because and they sound like they're cheating. You feel like you're cheating, but actually you're getting the same kind of language development from an audiobook as you are from reading the book. The thing that you're missing, the only real thing that you're missing is spelling. Spelling and perhaps a little bit of the grammar, right? But you're hearing the construction of sentences, because as a reader, when you're reading something with your eyes, you're going to skip over things. You're going to fast forward your reading here and there. However, it's really, really useful to hear every single word. Like when you're actually having someone read it to you, they're reading every single word. They're skipping nothing at all. So that's actually pretty interesting. They're finding that benefits to audiobooks are very, very similar, and in some cases superior to actually reading a book. Another goal could be to read books as a family or as a couple. My partner and I, we are reading a book right now. He actually selected it. So find the thing that you're interested in, and there's going to be a book on it. So he's very interested in space, and he found this amazing book, and I'm just interested in reading, period. So I'm a really easy sell. But finding something that you have in common and then getting a book on it. I know right now that heated rivalry show is going crazy all over. I saw somebody that I follow on my books on my books Instagram picked it up, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I got a copy of this salacious material." And I'm like, you know what? This is the kind of thing, like if it's interesting to you, get your hands on it, right? Get your hands on it, whether it is an audiobook, whether it is a ebook on Kindle, or if it's something that you actually can get your hands on where it's actually a paper. Now, there are also goals that you can make, but be reasonable with yourself when you're setting these goals. Somebody like me, I don't even set number goals anymore, because as soon as I finish one book, I'm picking up another. And sometimes I have 4 books going at the same time. Right now, I think I have 3, 1 nonfiction and 2, and then the audiobook. So setting yourself 12 books for the year is great. If you haven't read a book in a long time, that is not for you. Read 1 book and then see where you want to be. Setting 12 books, whereas 1 book a month, is actually a pretty reasonable goal. That's pretty heavy. We all live busy lives. We can do, that's a very, very respectable goal as well. Now, there are folks out there who are setting goals to read 100 books in a year. But you know what? My goals this year are going to be a little different. Like this year, I'm going to be reading a different genre. I need to be coming out of my fantasy loop right now. I am reading for enjoyment. So I'm not setting myself a number goal. I'm going to be reading a little bit more nonfiction. And before we, step over and get into to meet with our guest who's going to join us very soon, I don't want to step over the fact that there's also more to the literary world than the reading. Sometimes there's also the writing, right? And so this is a really different place to play, because it's easy to say, please read. Like reading is something we all need to be able to do. We need to read packages. We need to understand the receipts that we're given. We need to read contracts. We need to, reading is something that every single one of us needs to do. But writing is something that not all of us really create a goal around. And so I didn't want to step over the writing goals that could be set for the year. Now, I'm a journaler, right? So I actually always have a journal, but this year I'm trying to do something a little different, right? When we're journaling, let me just check in on our guest at the same time. When we're journaling, we're processing the things that we're living with right now, We are processing our thoughts. We are forming our opinions. Oh, I need to send just hang tight. I'm going to send this again. We are putting ourselves, we're teaching ourselves how to think. We are questioning ourselves. It's almost like a therapy session. That's one of the things that I really, really love about one of the things I love about journaling is that it's so funny because I also had a coach and a therapist, and with my coach and my therapist, I would sometimes take my journal because I process this. Let me help you catch up with where my head is at right now, right? And it's actually a very, very powerful tool for your own mental progression. I don't know how people live without it because I'm so dependent on it myself. I'm just getting Miss Joy in here. I sent her the wrong link. Forgive me. Our guest will soon be joining us. In the meantime, I want you to see this, right? So, journaling is one thing, but art journaling is another. And I find that sometimes I have to stop writing and I need to just put my thoughts out there in a different way, right? And I just got myself a sketchbook for the first time in a very, very long time. And so my sketchbook is now like a separate form of journal for me. I've been playing with this all week. I know it's a little bit blurry, I'm sorry. But this is like my first entry in my sketchbook. And so I've written around it about flowers. And it's a bit of a tribute to my grandmother because she was on my mind this week. It was her birthday. So I have a photo of some flowers that were growing in my front yard and decided to just spend some time in the feelings, which is another thing that is useful for the writing is useful for. But before we jump into that, I'd love for you to see something that's even easier to do. Like you don't have to be a good artist to start journaling. This is one of the things that I love. It's a new thing that has taken off in the last 5 or 6 years, but I think it's always been a part of Japanese writing culture. And it is, they use washi tapes and stickers, and Japanese stationery is kind of famous all over the world. But take a look at this. I actually follow this account and I've ordered from them a few times and I really, really love them. This is a process called junk journaling, or it can be considered a form of art journaling. And you can see that they've left places for them to write things in. But it's actually a really, really fun process of playing within your journal and seeing what you can create and using stickers, some other form of art. And it'll actually open you up to being able to just express yourself in a different way. Now, before we invite our guest to the stage, and she's here, I'm so glad. Hi. We are going to, I just want to touch base on one last thing. So we talked about our own goals and starting where you are and doing the thing that you really enjoy doing and finding the one topic that is going to hook you into it. And if you haven't read a book in a very long time, don't be setting a goal to read 100 books this year. Grab yourself one good one and just get into your reading. We've also talked a little bit about journaling. We talked about what the purpose of this writing and reading exercise and practice is and the benefits. But another beautiful thing that I don't think we talk enough about, and some folks don't even know that it's available, is that there are wonderful communities where you can share your love of reading and share your love of writing. Right now, I'm actually a part of the Flowetry group that meets on Thursday nights, and I haven't been there in a little while. at least one Thursday night of the month, we meet at the Hartwell Theater and share poetry, and there's a featured poet. And there's also a really cool group, and you can find them on social media on Instagram, called Underground Sessions. Underground Sessions is also once a month. It's a younger crowd, and there's a lot of really cool writing. And some of that writing is performed as music. Some of it is rap. We have poets. They're comedians that go in and try their hand at the open mic at Underground Sessions. And there are also other places. There are groups online. We have quite a few book clubs that have been popping up online on social media. There are a few of them on Facebook. And there's some really cool places to be. So I am just going to invite you to be part of this. Have this be one of the things that you thoroughly throw yourself into in 2026. It cannot hurt. It can only help. And just enjoy it. Don't take a goal that is too big and too lofty, one that you are not reliable to complete. Make sure that you're being realistic with yourself so you don't beat yourself up about it, right? And do something you know that you're going to enjoy. Like, find a topic that you know you're going to enjoy. And if reading is not where you start, let writing be the place that you start. And if writing is not the place that you start, let your art be a place that you start. But find a way to express yourself and dip your toe into this world. Now, I would love to invite to my stage Miss Joy Basdeo. I know her as Miss Joy, and she is the author of, see her here?
Hi, Annikki. Hi, audience.
Look at that beautiful cover. So Miss Joy has a lovely book out right now, and I'm excited about it as personally, because it's so close to home for me, right? So Miss Joy, tell us about your book.
Well, it's finally here. It's called Slice of Home, and it's a children's book that I wrote for my grandkids. All the stories are new. Are real. They're 26 stories with 26 fantastic illustrations by Michelle Bryan. And they talk about growing up in Bodden Town, a home that we share, in the 1950s and 1960s. And just to set the scene, there was no electricity. There was only one telephone in the whole town, and that was in the post office, reigned over by Miss Dina. There was one car, Mr. Logan's taxi, and so if you wanted to go to Georgetown, you had to engage a ride and get up early and go with Mr. Logan into Georgetown. But we had a beautiful life. Families were very close. The community was very close. The church was a very big part of the community, and our lives, as well as school. And many of my stories are around Bodden Town Primary School and the people and the friends that I made there. But the biggest friend is, and the person who is mostly in most of my stories, is my cousin Tony Lynn Jackson. We were the same age, and we went to Bodden Town School. We were in the same class. And we had lots of adventures. And so I have written them down for my grandkids and for the other kids. And I must say that the children in schools where I've been reading this week and before this week love my stories, and they have a good time. They have a lot of questions.
I love them. I love the stories as well. I actually spent some time with your book, and one of the things, Miss Joy, that I'm so glad that you spent time on was talking about the cows in the pasture. Because it's so funny, because I grew up, of course, in the 80s, right? And which would have been quite a bit after
me.
But I feel like your growing up and my growing up is closer than my growing up and, say, my niece and my nephews growing up, because they don't have those places anymore. Like, the life has changed so much since then. But I loved talking about the cows, because I myself had a situation where I had to run from a cow. So that was one of the things, and the donkey as well.
And the mule, Mr. Michael's chasing mule. Yes.
Yeah. So, I love that you touched on the reality of those things that were brought it to life. And you also had a wonderful illustrator, right?
Yes,
and I love that we talked. I love that
Yeah.
you connected someone from home, you know?
Yes, Michelle is fantastic, and
Yeah.
she has really made the book. She has made my
Yeah.
stories come alive. The children love seeing. The children love seeing the book
The
and the
illustrations are beautiful.
illustrations. As you will see in this one, this is my cousin Tony. This is my brother Andre, and this is me, and this is my dog who features in several of the stories,
Oh.
including the Christmas dog, because my dog went to church every Sunday.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I saw when you and Tony got saved. I
Yes.
love that one. I loved it. Oh my goodness.
And the older people will remember those conventions
Mm-hmm.
with Reverend Kluge, because the people, as I said in the stories, are real people. And
Yeah.
so their families, and some of them who are still here with us will recognize the people.
Mm-hmm. And he also had the tea party, and I think Michelle illustrated that so beautiful as well, so beautifully as
Yes.
well. It's a lovely little book, and I'm just excited because, my grandmother would have lived right behind where you would have lived around that
Yes.
time. So
That's
these are
right.
the people. Some of the people that you talk about are also in my life, the people that I know, and so
Well,
it's kind of exciting.
I um, I, of course, remember your great grandmother, Aunt Chrissy,
Yes.
extremely well,
Yeah.
because we used to go and visit her, you
Yeah.
know, her and Myrtle. And of course, I knew all your family because, of course, we related.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. And it's so funny because it seems like reading is in our family life, it's actually a part of our family, and my mom is an avid reader. My brother, I think Granny Chrissy used to read quite a bit as well.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So what is your writing life like now, Miss Joy? Because I know you journal and you do more than just write
Yes,
children's stories.
to be very honest, I don't really have much of a writing life. These stories came about because some of my grandchildren moved away to
Mm-hmm.
Canada about
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago, and they told their dad that they missed my stories, and
Mm-hmm.
I missed them too, and so I started to write them down. And at first, I would write them usually at night, but
Mm-hmm.
because when I started to remember, the stories came fast, and I would write them down a
Mm-hmm.
couple at a time sometimes, and send
Mm-hmm.
them off in email. And then someone showed me how to do voice notes, and I would send off the voice notes, and he
Yeah.
would play them for them at night. Because one of the things that my children, also my grandchildren, are used to is being read to at night before they go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
So they had my stories. Then I sent them all in a jump drive. And I don't know, somehow or other, someone found out about the stories, one of my friends, I guess, and said, Joy, why didn't you put them on Radio Cayman? On
Mm-hmm.
the Caymanian stories on Saturday. And so I did, because they were all ready. I could send them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, what really happened is my contemporaries, the older people, because I'm in my 70s,
Mm-hmm.
um, said, Joe, you have to write them down because we want to be able to read them. They
Yeah.
could relate to them. It was that whole feeling of nostalgia that
Yeah.
this is a life that they lived as well. And
Yeah.
so I just put them together, and I was very fortunate. I found a publisher here in Cayman, and it was quite easy. Only thing was that they were a little delayed getting here because I had hoped
Mhm.
to have a launch in November, but they didn't get here until the week before Christmas. So we put them straight into the shops.
Yeah.
So, but I will still have a launch when I get the rest of them.
Well, when you're ready, you let us know. We'll make sure that Cayman knows about it. But Miss Joy, I'll tell you something about it too that I thought was pretty special. The way that you tell the stories, because you've targeted them to young children, right? So
Mm.
you've kept the language and just the stories are very simple. And I'm hearing just the way that you tell them reminds me of my own grandmother in the hammock telling me stories to put me to sleep because they were little bite-sized stories. And
Yes.
out talking about her running underneath the house because somebody's stair got loose. Talking about like things like that, little things like that and they weren't long or elaborate, but they were so precious.
And their ordinary life. It's not
Yes,
anything special. It's just
yeah,
ordinary life. This is how life
yeah.
was for us.
But it's so like it's so exotic to have that now because so many of our older folks, they told the stories and then they passed. That's how they passed them on. They just told
Yes.
them. They didn't write them down. So it's very, very, very special to have this. And I have my own copy now. I'm going to take down to my niece and nephew. Like I said to you today, I'm going to spend some time with them and read it to them, and actually place it, because what I love too about the book that you've written is that it is placed in some a place that we can recognize. Like there's, and Michelle, of course, is from just one road over, right?
Yes.
So she would know what these things look like. She could
She
interpret
knows. She
the book.
knows Gun Square, and she probably knows that
Yeah.
banyan tree too.
And the Neesberry tree that you were telling me about too. I
Yes.
mean, I've known that Neesberry tree my whole life, So these were the landmarks. These were the places that
That's
that
true.
made that. Some of them remain, and it's very special to have them still. But Miss Joy, you're also a reader, and this is a sweet part, right? Like,
Yes, I
what
am
is
a
your reading
reader.
life like?
I have always been a reader.
Mhm, mhm. Tell us what you're reading now.
Well, reading now. Actually, I'm reading nonfiction right now,
Mm-hmm.
which is very unusual, but it's nothing for me to have 5 books going at once. But I'm reading a book called The Swedish Art of Aging Exuberantly.
Ooh, I got to write that one down. The Swedish art.
Art of Aging Exuberantly. You can get that for your mom.
Oh my goodness,
I
I
think
think I
we're in the
will.
same. Yes, and it's very, very interesting, but it is nonfiction.
It sounds like it would be fun.
Well, it is fun because the woman who's writing it is, I'm not sure because I'm just getting into it. I'm not sure of her exact age, but I know she's older than me, probably in her 80s or 90s.
Mm-hmm.
She's really talking about preparing for the next stage of your life, which is
Mm-hmm.
exactly where I am preparing for the next stage of my life. Um, because now I'm retired and able to do what I want, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also reading, in fact, I have 4 nonfiction going right now.
Oh wow.
I
Okay.
have a book called Wintering by Catherine May,
Mm-hmm.
which I must recommend to anybody who's going through a very hard period of time,
Mm-hmm.
um, because that talks about dealing with a big, I wouldn't say catastrophe, but a big thing in your life, a big Uh, and so I've been recommending that to people. I sort of got connected with that because, I have not long ago, earlier last year, I trained as a certified grief educator because I had been very ill. And in fact, today is 12 months since I got out of hospital. And I'd been very
Congratulations.
ill. Yeah, I had been in the hospital for 4.5 months, and it was very bad. But now I'm doing fine. But it's just that my life is is different now. I think being so ill has changed me a lot. And one of the things that I did was to do this course on grief education, how to help people deal with grief and loss.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that because of wanting to volunteer. I've had a very busy, very good life,
Mm-hmm.
but I haven't had much time to
Yeah.
do things like volunteering. So now I want to volunteer. That's my goal. Now I want to volunteer, particularly with senior people. And
Okay.
I've been going around to senior groups, and they love my
Mm-hmm.
stories. But I'm also volunteering with Jasmine. I hope to volunteer with the Red Cross just to fill up my time with working with senior people because I think that the seniors need loneliness is a very big problem in Cayman for our seniors,
Yeah.
and so I want to work with them,
I
volunteer to
imagine that
work with them.
there must be a lot. I mean, I think our seniors are also grieving a time past. I feel like that's a normal
Yes,
thing for most seniors, like
yes,
anybody that gets to that stage in life. But I don't know. I feel like this is a time. Like my grandmother, who is now gone, her birthday would have been yesterday. She said she used to come out very often until I would say about 5 years before she passed.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would take her out for drives, and she did not know where she was
Yeah,
because the landscape has changed so significantly. So there's
that's
a
true.
there's a feeling of disorientation for a lot of our seniors as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you say wintering has had
Yes,
the like happened to me.
Winter is talking about when you're going through a very bad stage in your life,
Mhm,
whether it's a
mhm,
loss, whether it's a death, whether it's an illness, and dealing with that. So
yeah.
wintering is that period of your life, the winter time.
Mhm,
Um, and it's a very positive book in that spring is coming. It's
mhm,
going to
mhm.
come. You can't, don't forget that spring is, this is all a season, it's going to pass.
Yeah.
The other thing that I have been reading, and I haven't got very far into that, is a book called Being Mortal. Again, this is nonfiction, which is unusual for me. And this is by Atul Gawande. And this is talking about illness. I guess I got into it after my illness.
Mhm, mhm.
And the other thing that I'm reading, I think I finished that one, is a book called Signs, which your audience might be interested in. It's by an author called Laura Lynn Jackson. And it talks about, if you believe this, how people who have passed on
Mhm.
can leave signs for you.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. It's very, very, it's a very
Oh my
interesting.
goodness.
Yeah, and I happen to believe that. So,
I do too. Oh my goodness, that should be fun.
yes,
I'm interested
it's,
in
I
that one
finished
for
that one. That's
sure.
good. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. I,
So that's what I've
Miss
been,
Joy, do you listen to podcasts?
that what?
Do you listen to podcasts?
Not too much. I don't find a lot of time for that. Why?
Okay. Because there's a really good one called the telepathy tapes.
Okay, I must put that down. I mean, I listen to some, but
I know you
not
were an
really.
educator, right? Your history
Yeah,
was you were
yeah,
very much involved in education, so this might interest you. And I'll tell you why. It was a it started out. The first season is about autistic children, nonverbal autistic children being able to communicate without speaking.
yeah,
And so they did a lot of testing to see these people were actually reading other people's minds.
yeah,
And in the second season, it talks about other forms of strange communication, remote viewing. So, for instance, my brother and I have this thing where sometimes if something very big is happening in our lives, he will see it when
yeah.
something's happening in my life, or I will dream it and something's happening in his life. And so they call that remote viewing. And these things
Okay.
happen between families. And of course, there's all sorts of strange things like pet communication and mediumship and all those things.
Oh
But
yeah.
you'd be very interested in that. I think you'd
Yes,
actually like it.
I'll certainly have a look at that. I'll
Yeah,
certainly
the
have a look.
telepathy tapes. I'll send
Yeah.
that one to you, but I'm very interested in signs. That
Okay.
sounds like that's just right up my alley.
Yeah,
People
it's good.
connected to the same thing, you know?
It's an ebook. It's very easy. I'd heard about her before, but this is a new book she has out.
Okay.
And in terms of fiction, which
Hmm.
really is what I read, um, and I'm always on a lot of threads about
Hmm.
reading and people recommending books and stuff. So I read a lot last year. I made a list of them. My favorite book last year is called The Correspondent from Virginia Evans. I don't know if you've heard of it.
That one
It,
has been on a lot of book lists
yeah, it's
recently
been on a lot of lists.
and
It's about
awards.
70-odd-year-old woman, and all the stories told through letters that
Mhm,
she wrote. It's a beautiful book. A lot of
mhm,
people have talked about Theo of Golden. You would have heard Theo of Golden. I didn't write
mhm,
that down, but that's been all the list top fives and stuff.
mhm.
I
I
a
haven't heard
particular
that one.
yeah. Um,
Mhm,
it's a good book. I didn't think that it was good, but it wasn't as good as all the hype. But it
mhm,
was a book about being kind, and I
mhm.
could see why it would appeal to people.
Yeah,
So that was good. One of my favorites is called All the Colors of the Dark by Chris Whitaker.
that's the one you're telling me about earlier today.
No, yeah, that one is a good one, and it has some similarity with Buckeye by
Yeah.
Patrick Ryan, and the one I couldn't remember that I was talking to you about was called Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver.
Oh, okay,
And
okay,
these
okay.
are all about, they're about boys.
Yeah.
Now, boys that had a hard life and how they came through. Of those three, I would say certainly All the Colors of the Dark was my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I've just finished reading My Friends by Frederick Backman. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you know him. I have read everything that he wrote. He
No.
very, very good. He is I think he's either Danish or Swedish. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people talk about Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I actually ended up reading that twice. I read it when it first came out, then I forgot it. And I
Yeah.
read it again. And then I said, oh, I think I've read this. It was good. It wasn't great. So what else can I tell you? Right now, the other thing I'm reading in nonfiction is by an Indian writer called Arundhati Roy, and she wrote a book that won the Booker Prize actually called The God of Small Things, which I
Ah,
read a long time ago.
that's on my list for this
Yes,
year.
The God of Small Things. I enjoyed it, but she has just written a nonfiction book about her mother called Mother Mary Comes to Me. And I know
Yeah.
I'll be reading that this whole week or as long as it takes because it is very, very well written. She's
Yeah.
an excellent writer. Another good one that people will enjoy is called The Wedding People by Alison Espach. I don't know if
That's
you've
also
read
on my
that.
list.
Yeah, they made a movie of that. The movie was good too. Um, and last week I was reading a new author. Um, Her name is Charlotte McConaughey, and
Mm-hmm.
the book is called Once There Were Wolves. I thought that was good.
What is that one? That one about?
It was about twins.
Oh.
Yeah, it was about twins. It
Oh.
was it was good.
So I guess that's like
So
Romulus and the reference to the
yeah,
world,
that was a
Remus
very,
and
very
Romulus.
good.
We
Yeah,
actually have a comment come in from Richard Parson. Author Barbara Kingsolver never
that's right.
disappoint.
Never disappoints, Ricky.
She wrote one that I loved, and I'm trying to remember the name of it now. It was about the African family
That's what
that
happens when you read so much. You can't
I know,
read.
I know. I have to find that. I'm gonna tell you in a minute. It was one of her most famous ones. I'm trying to remember the name of it. The Poisonwood Bible.
The Poisonwood Bible. Yes, I read that one
Oh
too.
my goodness, that
Yeah,
I think
that
about
was
that book and I get the chills still.
that was very
It
good.
was so fascinating because that just what our family went through, I could see it, like
Yeah.
she really brought it to life. Really, really good.
Some of the books that I read last year are also good ones. One called Lessons in Chemistry. I don't know if you heard about that.
No.
Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmers. And Hello Beautiful by Anne Neapolitano. She
Mm-hmm.
also wrote, oh, what's it called? It's gone out of my head, but Hello Beautiful was good. And one, I don't know if you've heard about this one by Jean Cummings called American Dirt.
Yes. I've
Very,
heard of
very,
that one.
yes, a very, very insightful and strong book. It's about Mexicans trying to
Mm-hmm.
get into the USA. And
Mm-hmm.
man,
Mm-hmm.
that will hold you.
Some of them are so like so gripping at the same time as terrifying. Like there's so much tension in some of these books.
Yeah.
And I find sometimes I have to put them down and then come back to them later.
Oh yeah, I
Just
do that
I
all the
go
time.
go cool off a little bit.
Yeah, it's a good
Yeah.
thing I can have them in ebooks because I'm
Mhm.
always reading 3 or 4 at a time.
Yeah, and you run out of space. I only recently remembered that there's also the book loft, right? So you don't have to.
Yes,
You can go up to the book loft and hand books in and take books out, and you're good to
and
go. I
get
really,
books.
really love that you can do that
Yeah.
stuff. Secondhand bookshops are one of my favorite places in the world. There's one in New York I used to go to that I really liked, but they had like a lot of like feminist and political and like like some of that hardcore stuff.
Yeah.
There was one book that I found there that I'll never forget. It was the hand that cradles the rock.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh.
It
I hadn't
was
heard about that one.
that was feminist poetry. It was an old book, but you're not gonna
Okay.
find the old books in bookstores anymore. You
Yeah.
can find them in the secondhand
Well, you
shop.
can hardly find a bookstore anymore, to
True,
be
true.
honest. Yeah, it's
But you can
hard.
find secondhand
It's
bookstores.
hard.
Tell you that. I
Yeah.
just hope that have you ever been to the Strand in New York?
No.
There is a bookstore. I think it's the biggest secondhand bookstore in the world. It takes up a
Really?
full city block.
Okay.
And it's multiple stories. If you ever go to New York again, I think it's near Union Square. I think it's near Union Square. Highly recommend, Miss Joy. You would be in heaven. You would be in heaven. You would very much enjoy it because they're very particular about the quality of the state of the books, right?
Yeah.
The condition of the books. So they only accept really like good, clean books. So you get really, really good quality
Good
stuff
quality
there.
books, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Miss Joy, it has been a real pleasure, but I have just a few more questions for you.
Okay.
I just want to take you through my lightning round, which has become a favorite thing of our guests.
Okay. All right.
And they're quick questions for you. Audiobook, ebook, or paper? Which is your preference?
My preference is paper, but I seldom get paper anymore because ebooks are so easy. And of course, if I see a book I want to read, I can download it immediately from Apple. So,
Instant. Yeah.
instant. But I prefer the book. And usually when I travel, I make sure that I get one or two at the airport, or make sure I carry one or two to read. Yeah, because I like the feel of a book in my hand.
Yeah, I like a book on a plane, and I love traveling from England because I feel like you find the best books in their bookstores in Heathrow.
In Heathrow.
That's some of my favorite books I found there. But fiction or nonfiction?
Both, but fiction mostly.
Do you reread, or is it just one and done?
It's just one and done. Once in a while I will reread, not because the book is so good, but because I've forgotten that I read it. That's what happens. What happened with Broken Country. But normally I read them and savor them and pass them on.
Yeah,
if I can.
Got it. Do you always finish a book, or do you put it down when you realize you don't like it?
No, I put it down. Life is too short.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't finish it if I don't push to finish it if I know it's not for me.
I hear you. I feel the same way. Miss Joy, it has been a pleasure to have you. Can you show us your book one more time?
Yes.
I want everyone to go and get it.
Well, you can get it at Book Nook, you can get it at Next Chapter, you can get it at the museum shop. Can you see it?
Yeah,
the
Slice of
shop,
Home.
you can get it at Pure Art. So it's all over, and this set will soon be finished, but some more on the way.
Oh, wonderful! I love that.
You can get them from me if you call me or DM me on Facebook or whatever. I can always let you have a copy.
Miss Joy, it has been a real pleasure. I am looking forward to seeing more books from you. if that is on the table, is that on the table for you?
Perhaps. I've been writing one for some time, but I tell you what I'm doing. I'm writing more stories because I could only put so much in this book, and I have quite a few more. So my advisor, Samantha, tells me that we have to put out an extended version of Slice of Home in hard copy.
Oh, I think that would be beautiful. And make that like a collector's
That's right,
item.
collectors I can.
Yeah, Richard is saying, great show, great guest. I
Thank you, Rick.
I could not agree with him more. You've been a wonderful guest. Miss Joy, you've given me so many things to put on my TBR pile. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
And send me the link for the telecast.
I will for sure.
Yes.
For sure. You have yourself
Have
a
a lovely
lovely evening. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been so fun and lovely just to enjoy the company of Miss Joy and her wonderful stories. There's just so they bring so much nostalgia for me, and the images are so powerful because you can tell that this is someone who knows her material. You know, the illustrator, and we're actually going to have her on the show at some point. We haven't quite nailed down an exact time yet, but I can't wait to have some illustrators on here. Thank you, Misty Ewanks. Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you for your comments and your questions. If you have any questions for us, if you have any thoughts that you'd like to share with us, don't be shy. You can send us an email at aguticollective@gmail.com. You can find us on social media, Books and Bush Tea Show. Remember, Books and Bush Tea Show on social media, on Instagram. Send us any requests for recommendations. Miss Joy has given us a lot to talk about this evening, to think about. I have a lot of books I need to go and buy. And I am so glad to have spent time with you all this evening. Keep on reading, keep writing, and keep in touch.